thank you guys for coming. Well, I mean, really, all we want to do is help you and help you understand what's going on in this crazy real estate market. So I'm sure if you guys are watching TV or listening to the radio, you have all heard how crazy the real estate market is. And it has been that way since we were shut down in 2020. I mean, it's just not, it's just, you know, one thing after another. It's just constantly changing. So, you know, they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but I'll tell you what, I have learned a heck of a lot in the last couple of years. So I have learned new tricks. But in your file, or in the packet that we gave you, there's all kinds of stuff. You don't need to pull anything out, but I'm just going to show you this really quick because, you know, there's rules. Everybody has rules, and the state of Pennsylvania has a rule that if you ever talk to a real estate agent and you're having a serious conversation, now we are not specifically talking about your individual self and your individual purchase desires. So this, I don't have to have you sign it. But when you meet with one of our buyer specialists, like Heidi's one of our buyer specialists who would love to help you, you will have to sign one of these. I just wanted to show it to you. It's in your file so you can see it's not scary. It's not a contract. It doesn't obligate you to anything. It just describes to you how real estate works in Pennsylvania. And so in your situation where you want to buy a house, if you call the name on the sign, which is what a lot of people do.
On their own, not realizing. Yeah.
They're not working for you. They're working for the seller. Yep, that's exactly right. But everybody calls them because they think, oh, I can save money. Well, that's not true because the seller's still going to pay that agent representing them commission. It's just that that agent representing them will get more. They think that they call the agent on the sign because they know more about the house. Well, they know more about the house and they know what not to tell you about. Okay? Trust me, you guys need a buyer specialist because she's going to walk through with you and she's going to say, oh my goodness, look at that. They must have had some water issues here in the basement. Or, oh, look at that. You know, I mean, she's going to be able to recognize you. She walks through hundreds of houses, okay? She knows what to look for, so she knows how to help you guys. So if you don't learn anything else from me today, don't call the name on the sign. You need a buyer representative, no matter who it's with, okay? But you want somebody that's representing you, not the seller. Okay?
Good information. I didn't know.
I
didn't think about that.
Yeah, most people don't think about that. And so I just wanted to stress the other thing, and I'm not going to say it's free when you're, you know, commission's never free. Trust me, somebody's paying it. But it's not you, the buyer. In a situation when you're buying a home, the seller in the state of Pennsylvania, and actually most states, pays the commissions. So there you go. So you're not going to have, your buyer's agent services are free to you, so to speak, okay? Because the seller will be paying them, not you. So that's another thing a lot of people don't recognize. So don't be afraid to work with a buyer's agent because it's not going to cost you that money. It is going to save you. Because trust me, we have had people that call the names on the signs and then we talk to them after the fact. You know, and they're like, oh my gosh, they didn't tell me this, and this. Well, they're not going to. Nope. They don't represent you. And that's what you have to remember. Okay? All right. So that was my push to just make sure you understand all of that.
But it's wise to have a buyer's agent because that way they represent you.
Oh, you don't have to, but why wouldn't you? It's my
that way
point.
they can help you.
How do you get one of those? If you want to buy a house.
You just gotta sign X. I'm trying to learn some of this too because I went through the classes for the first, home buyer class.
Oh, good. So you can have. Was it through the county?
Yeah.
Through Dauphin County.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, that's probably one of the things you're going to mention.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I just wanted to say basically what this form says is it tells you as a buyer's agent that the only person that's representing you is whoever you choose to have a buyer agency with, okay? Anyway, all right, so there's a whole lot of other stuff in here, but the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about is once you find a real estate agent, so you find a buyer's agent that you want to work with, they're going to sit down, in our agency, they're going to sit down and talk to you and just go over the steps. So I'm just going to go over them sort of briefly, but if you meet with a buyer's agent, they're going to spend a lot more time talking to you about specifics. I'm going to be very general, okay? Okay. But that's another reason to use a buyer's agent and not call the name on the sign, now that we're going in on that subject, is they're going to sit down with you and educate you. Because this is something they do every day. They understand. This might be the first house you ever buy. I mean, so you need somebody to help guide and direct you so you do it the right way. Okay?
Questions from this, they were asking, how do you find a buyer's agent?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
That's okay. No, there.
Thank you. Well, you could, if you know somebody who's bought a home and has worked with a buyer's agent, you could ask them if they liked their agent and they were comfortable. You could do it that way. You can always Google buyer agents, but I mean, obviously, I think we have. Sorry.
No, but seriously.
I mean, obviously, I think we have buyer agents on our team because we do specific buyer agent training. There's a lot of different. Now I'm going to get into something that might be somewhat confusing. If you call the name on the sign, we're going to go back to that. It's kind of keep the same theme going here. And you're working with that agent that's representing the seller. That has a name. It's called dual agency. Two people, the buyer and the seller, work with one agent. So dual, they're together. The same agent works for both parties. He's a dual agent working for both the buyer and the seller. Okay, when we started Joy Daniels Real Estate Group, which was 2010, so we were 13 years old actually just a couple of weeks ago. Anyway, we decided that the thing that I liked the least about my experiences at RE/MAX, because I had been with RE/MAX for 20 years, is that I didn't like the idea of representing both the buyer and the seller at the same time. They pushed that, and I couldn't figure, I'm so naive, right? They're pushing this whole dual agency thing, and I'm thinking, why? Why? I don't like it, but I did it when I could, which isn't that often, but it's enough, right? And so when we opened Joy Daniels Real Estate Group, we were talking to agents in other parts of the United States who were telling us that their agents either work for buyers only or sellers only, and they don't mix. And I thought, I like that. That's what we're going to do. But then as I'm running my own company, I realized why RE/MAX always wanted us to work for both parties. It's because they made more money. I think, duh. I should have figured that out, but I did now. But anyway, we at Joy Daniels Real Estate Group, our agents work for the buyers or they work for the sellers. Now, some of them do list houses and work with buyers, but not at the same time, if you know what I mean. So if they list a house, they're not allowed to sell it. If they're working with a buyer, they're not allowed to sell their own listing. Because I don't like that whole dual agency thing, because how can you?
You feel awkward.
If you guys were selling a house, would you want that seller to also be representing the buyer?
No.
I mean, that agent to also be representing? No. So, anyway. So, now, how do you know the difference between a buyer's market and a seller's market? Because that's the crazy thing that's going on. We were talking about the ups and downs and the roller coasters and what you're hearing on the radio, and what you're hearing right now is how crazy the market is. But if you're a buyer, crazy's not always good because there's not a lot of houses in inventory right now. Supply and demand, you know, that's what everybody, well, there's no supply and there is demand. So what does that mean? That means poor buyers are not doing, you know, it's a seller's market right now. Sellers are primarily getting more of what they want because there's not a lot of choices for buyers. That will change. It always does. And then what happens is more houses come on the market. We're already starting to see more houses coming on the market, which is a good thing. And so then once there's more houses on the market, buyers have more to choose from. It's more of a buyer's market and less of a seller's market. So it does change. But you need to understand when you're a buyer what market you're in. Just like if you're a seller, you need to understand what market you're in. That's another reason why you need a buyer specialist helping you understand the market and what's happening. Because I promise you, it changes all the time. I've been in real estate for 34 years and I can guarantee you it changes a lot. So anyway, so the first part of buying a house is starting to look. You got to look for a home. You have to search for a home. How do you think most people start their searches?
On the internet?
Yepper. That's exactly right.
Zillow.
That's where I was at.
Stay away from Zillow. Go to joydaniels.com. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, 94%. That's a huge number. 94% of people that are looking for homes start on the internet. That's exactly. You guys hit the nail on the head. So, but then what'll happen is if you're working with a buyer's agent, they will, when they're talking to you, they'll find out, you know, how many bedrooms you need and how many bathrooms you need and what kind of, if you need a garage or, you know, they'll find out what's really important, your location.
Right.
Location, location, location.
Especially if you have children.
Location, location, location. Exactly. It's really important. So you just need to stress what is most important to you to your buyer specialist. They'll put a search together for you, and then that search gets emailed to you automatically. And you'll receive a listing that you can look at online. But anyway, it's kind of funny. So she'll, you know, between you looking and them looking, you'll gather houses together, and then you'll just set up a date and go out and start taking a look. But your eyes are going to be looking at the layout of the house, how many bedrooms. You're going to be picturing your stuff in the house. Her eyes are going to be looking for things that you need to be aware of.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
A broken window,
Yep.
crack on the
That's
floor.
exactly what she's going to be looking for you while you're just looking at what you need.
Yeah. Like, can you afford it?
Yeah, can you afford? Well, first of all, that is a good, remember I told you that after you find your realtor, she's going to talk to you, she's going to help you with figuring out what you qualify for. And she's going to make a strong suggestion that you call a lender and you get pre-approved. Because, first of all, most listing agents won't even look at an offer without a pre-approval.
Because they're feeling that they don't want to waste their time.
Yeah. Why should I bother my seller with an offer when the buyer can't necessarily even afford the house?
Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So anyway, okay. Okay, so you're going to view properties with your agent, and they'll find you the right house. So all that's good stuff. The next part of the home buying process is you found the house of your dreams, and you walk in the door, and you'll know. I mean, you guys will know.
It's like a wedding dress.
It's like there you go. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, are you getting married or
No,
just got
God,
married?
girl, I'm divorced.
Oh.
I mean, God bless you, Miss Daniels. Woo, woo, woo.
Okay. All right, so you find a house. So the next step is you've got to write the offer. These contracts are 14 pages long, and there's a lot of information on these contracts. These contracts were written for the state of Pennsylvania, and they cover any possible house that could be sold in the state of Pennsylvania. So if you're buying a $100,000 house, you're buying a $600,000 house, it's the same contract, which is crazy. If you're buying a house that has well and septic, or a house that has public water and public sewer, it's the same contract. Again, this is something that we do. We look at these contracts day in and day out, and we have read them line by line by line 100 times, at least. I mean, I've probably read it thousands of times. Point being, we understand the contract and can help you write that contract, okay? So that's the next step. on the contract, we're going to figure out how to make it work, how we're going to have you win, because in this market there is competition, especially on homes that aren't priced ridiculously high. They're going to have more competition. So we're going to help you figure out the best closing date, the best price, how the deposit's going to work, you know, a lot of different things. The inspections, we're going to talk about inspections with you and help you understand all of that stuff. And your agent is already ahead of time going to have called that agent that has the house listed that's representing the seller and find out from them what's important to that seller. Because our buyer's agents know how to win. And so they do all the right things to help you so you can get the house that's going to work for you. So, okay, so that's the second part. You look for a home, you find the home, you write the offer on the home. The next part of the offer is your offer is submitted to the listing agent, and she'll obviously negotiate with you. There might be a counter offer, it might go back and forth, and that it happens, trust me. The sellers do not always accept your offer, especially if it's not
What they want.
what they want. Exactly. Exactly. So, all right, it can take several attempts. And honestly, in this market that is a strong seller market, you might lose. You might lose a few times. It's just because, because you can't win. You might not be cash. Probably not, right? So that's what you need, the help with the buyer's agent to help you figure out, or the lender. The lender's going to give you lots of great ideas for how to get the money and what you need. Okay?
Here's
All right. I'm sorry?
I may be jumping the gun, I'm not
Oh,
sure.
no.
But when it comes to, you know how when people are selling their homes, I'm only saying this because I watch movies a lot. And so, they talk about appraisals, is that like...
Yeah, that is, yeah, it's on my next, it must be on the next page, but it's on here.
Yeah, because I know that has a lot to do with
It has a lot to do with it, so yeah, that's great. All right, so now you've submitted the offer, you've negotiated, we're back and forth, you've got your offer accepted. So the next thing is you have to then, I know you have a pre-approval and you've done all that ahead of time, but now it's time to make a formal mortgage application, okay? That would be the next step. Once you get your offer accepted, you're going to do your formal mortgage application, and then you're going to schedule your home inspections or septic, sewer, pest. They look for bugs.
Oh my God, yes.
Bugs are
And septic can be
termite.
expensive, so that's something that definitely
Yes.
needs to be-
Well, hopefully if your property has public water, public sewer, then you don't have to worry about that.
Oh, okay.
So that's always, a lot of people will only look for houses that have public water and public sewer. They don't want to deal
Oh,
with.
so you're saying, no, I'm thinking of maybe the wording I'm not using, but some people, their houses be back, like their plumbing is back, like they haven't cleaned it
Oh,
properly.
right. So that would be the home inspection. The home inspector
Yeah.
is definitely going to check out the plumbing and the piping and
That's
make
what I
sure,
meant, not, yeah.
make sure that things are flowing and moving.
That's
That's why it's
something-
really a good idea to get a home
And you can find out
inspection.
stuff find out stuff in like through the county records.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
a lot
say
of
everything.
stuff gets looked at. It's really important for you to take that time to do that. All right, so now we're done. We've got all these things done. We're moving onward. We are getting to settlement. Well, what do you do? It's kind of like things quiet down a little. What you're not going to do during that time is buy a car, buy an appliance, buy anything that you need credit for. Do not. Once you have gotten yourselves pre-approved, do not buy anything. I mean anything.
Thank you.
So I know you're going to say that, but it just came up on my
Her face
mind.
got real red, like, yes, please don't do it.
There are certain things that we got to talk about that are so important. That's another one. Don't call the name on the sign, and don't buy anything on credit once you've been approved for a mortgage, or change jobs.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Don't change jobs.
Oh,
yeah, I know.
No job changing. I know she'll tell you more. I won't
so
say
no
that.
major life changes?
No major
Correct.
life changes. Yeah, that would be nice for everybody. So anyway, then the next thing would be, you're going to get closing. So now we're going to, you're going to pack, and you're going to You have to have a certified check. You will need money at closing. That depends on how much you're gonna be able to get from your different funding that's available. But let's just say you need $1,000. That check has to be certified, or a cashier's check. You cannot bring in, I guess you can bring in cash. Can you bring in cash? No. No.
So it's like someone a paper.
Yeah. You have to have a certified check or a cashier's check for what you need. And you'll have to put the utilities in your name for your new house. You'll have to, as part of the closing, you will end up, one part of your closing cost is you reimburse the seller for taxes and things like that. I think you're going to go over different costs and stuff like that. Okay. So then it's closing day. You're going to settlement. So when you go to settlement, you have to have, one, your certified check. It's not a personal check. Your driver's license, because you have to have a formal photo ID. And you have to show up with, I mean, I'm telling you, they will not close you without a form. And you know, obviously you'll know all this ahead of time, but just keep that in mind. You have to have your driver's license.
Not expired, just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I also,
renewed mine.
and not expired,
Right.
Yeah.
We've had that. People come there like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this expired.
I had a 92-year-old woman that had an expired driver's license, and they were not. And I looked out, I said, she's 92 years old, for God's sake.
Like, seriously,
I don't drive
let her
my
be.
And they did let her go.
Oh,
They
okay.
did, only because she was 92.
92.
But see, if it was you guys without it,
They were like, no.
I know, how impressive is that? She was 92 and still driving, but her license was expired. She had forgotten.
Pulling over Grandma May.
So at the closing table, you're going to get what's called it could be called an ALTA or a closing disclosure. It could be called a HUD, but we don't see those too much anymore. That's cash offers. That's what they used to be called. In my day, when I first started in real estate, probably the first 20 years, if I had heard a closing disclosure, I'd be like, what's that? But now, and nobody, and HUD, it was HUD. And now it's never a HUD, it's always the closing disclosure. And now most people don't know what a HUD is. So that's good. So you're going to be able to get the keys to your new house. At that time, after closing, you'll be handed
That's where the
keys.
picture comes.
Yeah, and all that good.
You see those all over, like, oh, I got it!
I got my house, I'm closed. Because until it's officially closed, it's not your house.
Right.
Yeah.
So there is a process.
Yeah.
And again, which is why you need somebody to help you kind of work through that process. So, I mean, what are your goals as a buyer? To get pre-approved, right? You want to make sure you get approval. You want to keep your costs low, right? I mean, yeah, you got to, yeah. You want to find a house that does meet your needs. You don't want to settle for any old house. Location, it's got to be a good location,
You want a
right?
good house, not a bad one, not a bad one,
That's right.
with cockroaches and rats and mouse and all that.
Well, that's why you get that pest inspection. Make sure there's no
They're right. Pest inspection.
bug destroying insects. Yeah, and of course you want communication. You want to have your real estate agent and your lender, and you want to have good communication.
Right,
So that's
absolutely.
really important. So somebody asked me how you find a buyer's agent. If you meet somebody and you talk to them and you just don't have that warm fuzzy, look
Don't
for
work.
someone
Go
else.
somebody else.
Don't work with them. You want a warm fuzzy. This is like one of the biggest things you guys are
Purchases,
ever
yeah.
going to do in your life. Do you want to spend the next 6 months with somebody you don't really...
It doesn't have your
that you don't trust, that you don't
Yeah.
gotta,
No.
and keep
No.
your
So-
money.
The relationship
Yep,
part.
so relationships are really important. Really important.
That's like you
All
wouldn't
right.
leave your child with just anybody. You don't want to leave
Hey.
your household decisions to anybody.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
See, this is my next thing. Is an appraisal important? See it right
Probably
there. Yes, an appraisal is very important. If you buy a house, let's just say you buy a house and you offered 100,000. Just 100's easy for me. It's a nice round number.
I used to say.
Just a nice
Easy
round
math.
number. So you offer $100,000 for this house. They were asking for 100, and you gave them 100. Okay? And then when they appraised it, it only appraised for 85. Oh my goodness, we're $15,000 away. Now what? Well, it's a whole nother negotiation. One, you could come up with that $15,000 in difference. Who has $15,000 in difference? Nobody. So, two, the seller could come down $15,000. Well, again, some sellers are just like, you know, no, I'm not coming down. I need X amount of money, which, trust me, that's another whole nother issue. But the third thing is you split it. Sometimes it's split. There's a bunch of different things, but if the house doesn't appraise and they're not willing to come down and you're not willing to go up, or able on either one, the deal falls through. You can't. The lender will not give you the money for your mortgage if the house doesn't appraise. So yes, an appraisal is very important to a buyer, which is why you need a buyer's agent, because when you make an offer on that house, they're going to have done research on that value. They're going to try to figure out, is the house worth what they're asking? And if it's not worth what they're asking, they're going to say, you know what, this house is never going to appraise at $100,000. We probably should only offer $80,000. And then when she does that whole negotiation with that listing agent, she's going to have a whole list. This is why we didn't offer you $100,000. And shit, trust me, she knows what to say and what's important and how we're going to make that happen. So that's another good reason why you guys want somebody to represent you. And yes, an appraisal is very important. Yes. So, okay. I just was going to talk about the different types of inspections. I think probably what you've been hearing out there is that buyers are starting to waive, they waive their inspections. This is central.
Oh my God, you shouldn't do that. You find out issues when we're coming in.
This is central Pennsylvania, and it's not happening quite as much here as it is in like California, and we're hearing we're hearing things from other areas. But one of the things is a home inspection that you guys should have done. And when they're doing that home inspection, they're going to be looking at the plumbing. Yep. They're going to be looking at the electric. Mm-hmm. Okay, those are huge. They look at the roof. Yep. They look at the windows. They look at the foundation. Mm-hmm. They look at really important things that isn't obvious. Like maybe, your buyer's agents walk through and she might have pointed out a few things, but they're obvious. Mm-hmm. There are things that aren't obvious. True. And that's why you need the home inspector.
Because mold is
Can
not
I say something?
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been looking at the website, what's it called, Zillow. And I'm looking at the houses, right? Because you can go on and hit the house and you can look in the house.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
And some of the houses they got, the outside looks all right. But the inside looks like the drywall, it's half done. Mm-hmm. Stuff's still sitting around.
Yeah.
But the price is a little bit down.
A lot of times you'll find that if the price is down, it's because the house needs work. Mm-hmm. It might be as simple as needing paint and carpet, but it could be as serious as
the pipe. The inspector, what they got to go in. And then I got to start from the basement part and go up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what they do. They go all, and they actually crawl up on the roof. Yeah, so they do that kind of stuff.
I have a question.
Yes.
What is the, say that you got a house, it was inspected supposedly, but then, there's down the road you find out.
You see something.
Like I can give an example, like a wood burning fireplace that's, according to your insurance company, needs to be
shut
down because, but it's been there for 50 years, and then you bought the house or whatever, and like, is there a certain time period of, like, from after you have like closed and
if there's an issue? Well, the biggest one that comes up typically after the fact is a seller will say on their seller's disclosure, which I guess I should bring that. Is there a seller? I should have had him put a seller's disclosure in here. Sorry, you guys, I don't have one, but if anybody wants one, we will make sure you get one. Mm-hmm. A seller property disclosure is a disclosure the seller has to fill out before they list their house. It's 11 pages long, and it answers questions about, did you get water, did you have a roof leak ever? Did you have water ever come in your basement? Did you ever have water anywhere else in your house? But it asks questions about other things too, but we're talking about water. And so if they say, nope, 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 we've never had a problem, okay? And then you move into the house, and there's a rainstorm, and it went up.
I'm sure.
It's always going up. $500. So $500, you pay this $500 fee, and this attorney listens to both sides. So he'll listen to you, and he'll listen to the fact that the neighbor told you this, that, and the other thing. But then he'll listen to the seller if the seller says, oh, well, that's not true. But he'll know. Trust me, you can tell. I mean, these lawyers are really good at what they do with this whole negotiation thing. And if there's a, yes, so it can happen. Does it happen that often? Thankfully not. Thankfully, in most cases, the sellers tell the truth and stuff like that. But, yeah.
And your buyer's agent will help you look at all the corners to make sure that there's no water, no humidity. Because usually that means that there's an issue of leakage or water. You know, and this is why you want a buyer's agent, because they're looking for any issues that you can ask more questions about and get more clarity about before you make an offer.
Do y'all check for, I'm sorry, do y'all check for, they check for like mold and mildew and stuff too?
All that
They do. The home inspector does look for that. Now, if they're, let's just say he saw mold. There's a lot of different types of mold, let me tell you. There's some mold that just needs to be cleaned off and it's fine. It's not gonna.
And there's some that you gotta.
And there's some that you have to, what they say, remediate or fix.
But
that costs, that's a lot, that's very expensive.
And is that on the seller or the buyer?
That's also very expensive on your health.
Well, if you catch it ahead of time, you negotiate with the seller. Yeah.
You know how they say when you get your house and they say something about a warranty?
A home warranty.
They got that. They had like saying with her about the stove, whatever she's talking about. Do that help that area?
Well, if you know, when you said about the stove, and then yes, the sellers used it and they never had a problem, and then you said the insurance company had an issue with it, well, you could call a different insurance company and see if they have an issue with it. Because if the seller had it up, you could find out from the seller, call your buyer's agent and say, find out who they use for homeowner's insurance. Because you might be grandfathered. And you know, it might not be, but that's not something that you can really, because you knew the stove was there. And you have the, you know, if the home inspector didn't say, well, you probably shouldn't use it, I mean, he would know.
Yeah, I know, that's what I mean, like, well, and this is not affecting me myself per se, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that was not.
That was missed.
Yeah, like a whole lot, but it's my boyfriend, I guess you said. But his buyer's agent, which is why it's very important to make sure that you are a good one, because he was crap, and I tried warning him.
Yeah, because that's what I was gonna say. Usually your buyer's agent can.
No, but you know, guys don't listen. So,
no, they don't.
And just quick, he gave, you know how you get a bottle of wine or champagne or something from, from your whatever, but this guy gave him he printed off a picture of T-Pain, that's like a rapper guy, and put it in a frame from the dollar store. And gave that to, congratulations, thank you for buying a house for me.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. He took T-Pain, off the sugar. What?
Okay,
well,
sorry,
that's
very
what I'm
important
saying.
to get a good.
So if you, yes, you gotta have a relationships.
Yeah.
Relationships are
Get this from?
Yeah, I don't question
The corner?
you already know. How
Yeah, we know. You know, common sense ain't so common, but go on, Ms. Daniel.
That's why Joy is here.
I'm going to let the bank talk now, and then when we're all done, then the three of us will answer questions, whatever questions you have, okay? So I'm going to this is Nikki Shank, and Nikki, I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
All right, following the whole rule thing, before I speak on mortgages, I have to give out
I'll get those out.
Sure. I have to give out my information, my MLS number, my license.
Oh, that's
my
another
own
state
location.
rule. Another state rule.
Another state rule. And I'll be back on camera in a second. I'm just gonna grab a folder to point out the whole things we need in here.
Everything can be done remotely though.
Oh,
So it does, the location is
Yeah.
not so serious.
Right.
Okay.
You can definitely call on the phone and get everything done.
And now it's so cool is you can sign stuff over the computer. You don't have to meet up and match.
Do y'all do Zoom too?
Yes.
Zoom?
Yeah. So you can do Zoom calls,
I
all
thought
kinds
Zoom-
of things. Yep. Yep.
Oh, we use that. I use them. All right, so the bank end of this, everyone wants to know how to get a mortgage. Everyone's, the exciting part, we get to do the exciting part. How do I find a house and a house I like? I have to kind of do the beginning part, which is how do I qualify for a mortgage? Because that's what most people want to know. So a couple things I heard just in the beginning, credit, do I have enough money, my job. These are all things that factor in. And what out of those do you think is the top, do you think, just raise a hand, do you think it's credit or do you think money is the biggest obstacle? So who thinks credit's the biggest obstacle?
Both.
And money? And both, that's both. So the good news is, and we'll go through this, and I'm not a credit counselor, full disclosure up front, but I will tell you what the programs themselves need. For pre-approval, what the bank is looking for, obviously the job stuff. So let's talk about a job. You know, they're looking for a 2-year history. So they're going to go back 2 years. They're going to look if you have job gaps, okay, or there's any gap in your job. It's okay if you do, if there's a reason. You know, there was COVID. A lot of people had a, you know, gap in their employment, right? You had a baby, you know, and I just went back into the workforce. That's okay. So as far as income, what they need, they're looking for a W-2 job. So those are jobs where you get a normal tax form. You're not, you know, self-employed or a temp or etc. So they're looking for a 2-year history. Now, what money can they use from a W-2 job? You can use that money from day one. So again, if you had a baby, you just go back into the workforce and literally that's where you've been, you know, step daycare. Daycare is expensive, as we all know, so you're watching your child. You get that W-2 job, we can use that employment from day one. So we just have to have basically one pay stub to tell us what your income is. Okay, that's a W-2 job. If you are a part-time employee, some of us might be part-time in here, you need a 2-year history. It's okay, you're part-time, you can work 20 hours a week, whatever it is, we just need a 2-year history of that. What if you are seasonal? Those of you that maybe you do landscaping or maybe you work at a pool or a resort or ski, you know, something that's partial during the year, we can use that as well, we just need a 2-year history. Okay? What if you have 2 jobs? We can use both. Again, if they're part-time, we need that 2-year history. So the job thing, you just have to, you know, as Joy said, we don't want any major life changes. You know, once you get that pre-approval, you kind of shift into neutral, and you're like, I'm going to stay at that job until I see.
What if you on disability?
We can use that as well. So as long as we have a 3-year, that's a great
My son
question.
is on disability and they used his disability or he would not have been able to get his mortgage.
Yep.
I get disability and social security.
Correct, we
Yeah.
can do social security as well. Anything
Yep.
that has, they're looking for a 3-year continuance. So the disability can't be a short-term disability that a work might pay that you're off 3 months. I mean, it does in the overall gap. If you're going back to your job, that's fine. But if it's a permanent disability, we can use that. Social security, we can use that. How about child support? So child support we can use as long as there's a 3-year continuance. So I'll ask him like, well, how
So
old
if
are
he ain't consistent, I'm sorry.
Right.
She gets on my nerves.
Don't rely on that.
My bad.
You like to laugh.
Yeah.
So child support, and that's 100% true. She's speaking the truth, not just from her emotions, but from the fact. If it's inconsistent, we can't use it. So if we award child support and they're not paying, they ask for a 12-month history, and if it's sporadic, we are not able to use it.
Or non-existent?
Or non-existent,
Or
true.
non-existent.
But if you're, and again, your child, you know, if they take up to 18, so we gotta make sure, you know, 14 and under, because we need that 3-year continuance, you know, for mortgage. So those are all types of income. You know, you have to make sure when you're getting your pre-approval, you're in a good spot. Again, you're going to that listing agent, to your buyer agent, wherever you're going, before they put that offer in, you need your pre-approval. So it's important, you know, make sure you have your job history lined up. If you have questions on it, you're welcome to call me and just say, hey, this is my job situation. What would the bank say? I'm happy to kind of advise you on, okay, this is where we need to be. Yes?
Oh, I was stretching as well.
Okay. I'll wait to ask a question.
Do you have to have a bank account for the?
Okay, so you have to have assets. So we don't allow what's called mattress money. That's what we jokingly call it.
Put your money in your mattress.
You put your money in your mattress, you can't use that. So as long as you have an account, it can be a retirement account, it can be an online account, it can be an account with the bank. So as long as you have an account where they're issuing statements, we're okay. Yep.
Mom, you need a bank account.
No, I don't.
I got
And how
one.
long do they need to have money, if they do
Great
have mattress
question.
money, how long do they need to have it in
Now-
the account before they can use it?
Go ahead.
Without any issues?
Okay, my mom is 89, she'll be 90 this year.
Yeah.
So I'm in her account.
Okay, that's fine.
Because I'm her what they call it, POA.
Yep.
Power of attorney.
So I'm in with her.
Yep, and that's okay, you can have a joint account. If someone applies, it's just the other person has to write a letter saying they have full access to the money. You know what I'm saying?
Talking about grandma.
POA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can, there's trustee accounts, there's accounts people hold for their children.
Yeah.
As long as the other person is, it's not a gift letter, it's just access to funds letter is what it's
Yeah.
called. They just have to write something.
But it ain't my money, it's my mom's.
Well, then technically it's her money, right? And then we would do a gift letter, which we'll talk about. You might not need access to that. We'll talk about gifts in a minute and see how we want to handle that. So that's why it's important. It is tricky.
It is.
And that's why it's really important when you're picking your buyer's agent, it's someone you trust and can understand. Same with your loan officers. There's lots of me's in the world, lots of people out there. You gotta have someone you can trust and, you know, speaks your language, so to speak, right?
Yeah, don't be trying to give you no underlay.
Exactly.
Dog
Right.
talk.
And there's lenders out there that'll tell you anything to get the business, and it's like, you've gotta be honest up front because this is important. You would lose your deposits and other things, so it's important to get someone you trust from up front. All right, so we talked a little bit about the job. Let's talk a little bit about assets, and then we'll go on to credit.
Oh, before you finish that,
Oh, yeah.
if you do have mattress money, how long do you need
Oh,
to have
great,
it in the
thank you,
bank?
thank you.
Because in case they
I keep on
do,
track.
it would
Yeah.
be nice to just, no.
No.
So money that, I mean, people literally tell me they dig up their money in their backyard, it's in their car. People drive around with, you know, thousands of dollars in their glove boxes. I don't know why they
don't trust the
just
banks.
don't trust the banks,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, I got
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a cultural thing with the
Another
banks.
thing is,
Yeah.
if someone gives you money,
Yeah.
and they never tell you when they got it, and you try to use it for real estate, they will wanna know where
Where
they
it
got
came
the
from.
money.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because they
right.
wanna make sure that it's legitimate.
Right.
It's not no bad, yeah, I
Cause that can
So
mess with
money
the
laundering.
sale.
So
dirty
they're-
money,
Or you do cash under a table, right? You're babysitting someone's kids, it's like cash under their table, whatever it is. That money all should be in the bank 2 months before, because we're gonna ask for
months.
2 months.
Yep, 2
So
months
if
of
you are
bank
getting
statements.
money, and you may not know where it came from, 2 months.
If
is
it's
the-
hidden under your mattress, put it in the bag for at least 2 months.
And that's the truth.
And then it's trackable.
And then you start your pre-approval. You don't wanna do your pre-approval, then put the mattress money in, right?
Yeah.
You wanna do your,
Good
right,
point.
right?
Yeah.
It's called seasoning your money. And it could be legit. We're not saying your money isn't legit, but it's gotta be in the bank for the bank to recognize
Right,
it.
it has to be a trail.
Yeah. All right, as far as money down, couple things I recommend, and we'll just back up. On the left side of the folder is first-time homebuyer courses. Highly recommend. I'm friends with the person that runs this, Gary. He's awesome. They do it. It's good. They'll keep your thing for a year, to be honest. They're pretty flexible. These are the dates in here. They have it. I believe it's like the second Saturday, depends it runs, but it's a calendar of events. It's down here. They do have free parking in the garage that day if you're not walking, if you're, you know, commuting
I
in.
live right down the street.
Yep. Yep, it's a great building. It's it's a beautiful building actually. It's on right off the front. And you take this class, they're gonna tell you all about the different programs you can get. Most of the programs I'm gonna talk about in the next couple minutes do need a first-time homebuyer certificate in order to qualify for whatever the grants are. And if you have yours, that's great. And again, you know, it's a year, they might do a renewal with you, it depends. Sometimes they'll let you do the online the second time around.
I did the online.
You did the online version. Yep, this is the in-person, so.
So you
I'll
don't,
do
you
that
don't
too. I'll go.
suggest doing this until you're actually like actively, pretty much.
You know, I think it's good anytime, so how it works with our bank, at any time, I think you need that as a foundation. I think you can take it now, even if you think you're a year out from buying, it's okay, it's gonna help you, because it just like being here today, it's all the tips to get started. It doesn't take, I mean, you're not gonna correct your credit in one day. You're not gonna save money in one day. So it's important to take. And then they have online ones. So if you have your main certificate, you can kind of refresh it with an online in most cases. So there's an online version of this as well. So I highly recommend. They're great ones. All right, so what I tell most of my folks that come with me for pre-approvals, you can't come to a pre-approval and have $0 in your account, okay? If you do have $0 in your account, you need at least enough for an appraisal, and you have to have a high credit score. So this is where it gets a little confusing. You have to have a loan officer that can stack all these programs. But for example, so this is the First Front Door program. These are funds issued each year by the Pittsburgh Bank, and they do run out. So it's one of those things, if you are searching in the spring and the summer, you're fine. What they do is every dollar you have, they'll give you 3. So roughly $1,700 if you, and again, it's tax season, if you got some kind of refund, you have $1,700, they'll give you $5,000 towards your house. Okay? It's called First Front Door. You apply for it. How do you qualify for this? You have to be 80% of the median income in your county where you're buying a house. So again, it's 80, I think it's like 85 for Dauphin. So if your household, so that's you and anyone in your household, 67,000 or less, you can get this grant, assuming it hasn't run out, right? So you have to qualify for it. You have to reserve it, but just know that money is there. So it's like magic. You take your $1,700 and it turns it into $5,000.
And you got to pay it back?
That's a great question. Actually, it is forgivable. It is a grant. If you stay in the house 5 years, poof, it disappears.
Oh, okay.
Okay? And we'll talk about each one of these. So, and it literally says on here, you know, how to apply. You go through a bank to apply. Not all banks do this program or support this program. So that's another challenge a little bit with doing this. You've got to go to a bank that is open to doing all the county programs. The other great news is a lot of these programs are stackable. You ever go to the grocery store, right? You use a coupon for something, and you can't really use 2 coupons on the same item, but maybe the store has a discount on it, so you're getting a store discount plus the coupons. That's what I do. I stack all the programs in here that I can. So you can stack this with the county. So let's use Joy's example of a $100,000 house, because it's easy math. That's what I do as well. It's much easier. So on a $100,000 house, a lot of these programs are going to ask for 3% down. Just a home ready, FHA is 3.5% down. So we'll use the 3% down. It's easier. So $3,000 plus your closing costs. Again, Joy alluded to you're paying the taxes up front. They're going to ask for your taxes and insurance. So any of these things are going to be included. So we'll call it another $5,000. So on a $100,000 house, again, these are all estimates depending on where you live, right? So say you need $8,000 down. You're like, I don't have $8,000. Where do I get it from? If you have $1,700, we're going to apply for the First Front Door. Now you have $5,000, so we're there. We're close. We're like, where am I going to get my other $3,000 towards these closing costs? The county. Okay? A lot of these programs can stack with Dauphin County. When you go this program in Dauphin County, they will give you $3,000, and it is something you don't pay on. It's not a mortgage, you don't pay on it. It's a lien on the property. When you sell your house or refinance, it goes back to the county, the next person uses it. So I think of it as a revolving, right? It's like, I'm going to help you get into your house. When you move, I'm going to help someone else that's just starting out. I'm going to give it to her this time. Okay. So there's your $5,000 First Front Door. You have to reserve it, so be a spring or summer buyer. They do run out towards the end of the year. The county grants did not run out last year, but occasionally they do run out, like in November or something like that. So just be cautious if you're buying at the end of the year. You might have to wait until the spring market again to get some of these grants. First Front Door opens on March 15th every year, so they are not out until April. So we're good. So here's your $5,000. You have $1,700 saved, and yep.
Yeah, I have a question.
Absolutely.
As far as the as far as the closing costs,
yes.
Can't you get the buyer to pay for the closing? Yeah.
Yep, seller. Yep.
I mean the seller, I'm sorry.
I know what you meant.
Yeah.
So that's another option, and that's something to discuss with your buyer's agent. So you might go to Heidi and say, hey Heidi, when we put an offer in this house, will they help me, with the cost? What they do is make the price a little higher, and then they, choose to give back the money so you have the down payment. But that might not be competitive. She's like, look, there's already 30 offers on this house. We can't be asking for any more money. Sometimes it's a decision where they need to talk to the lender and be like, do we have any other grants we can help this person with so we can stay competitive? It really depends on the house. So that's more a real estate question on, can we ask for that? It really, they gotta get the feel for it.
You said it right, you can, but it can work against you if there's a lot of offers. Limited resources and a lot of buyers. It can work against you, but sometimes there's no harm in asking anyway. Because it could be, the bridge that you need to buy this house. And, and if it doesn't work with that one, there's always another house.
Remember that, guys.
There's always
gonna be something else.
And probably something better, like.
And most people are happy they didn't get the first house.
I agree.
So I'm gonna be like the inspector when I go look at it. I'm gonna look right at the cracks. I'm gonna be right outside with you.
The other
outside too.
You're good. So another thing with the loan. So again, that first front door forgivable if you're staying 10 years. We got the county grants for $3,000 if you qualify. And this is another one. Again, not all banks do this. Is the K-Fit K-Flex loans. If you are already a homeowner, you can actually get this to do improvements. So say you do move in, I mean the house has to be livable when you move in, but maybe you want to do something later. You can actually look at these. Actually, Heidi and I were at the training for this not too long ago. There's so many programs out there, it's amazing. Like if you want to add solar, if you want to fix your septic system, if you want to, you can get loans once you are inside your house. So just kind of keep this paper once you are in your house. Keep it for later because they have a lot of like really low interest rates or even grants that can help you fix things in your house to remodel. But I sidebar. So this program will again give you money towards that down payment. So what if you are earning above that 60-some thousand? Again, the county, I believe, Dolphin is 49,000, don't quote me on it. So again, that's roughly to qualify. So what if you make above that, if you're making above that 49,000 a year, you want something like K-Fit, okay? So K-Fit will give you that loan. Again, it's a percentage of the purchase price. So it might be a $5,000 loan, a 10% loan, $10,000 loan. And again, this is a second loan. We roll it all into the same payment when we can, but just know there are loans possible to get in the house that you might not need the seller's assist. You don't qualify for the other grants, you at least have this as your backup. Okay, if you earn a little more or you need a little more money because you're looking at a $200,000 house, you're like, $8,000 isn't going to cut it, I need a little bit more, that's when we look into K-Fit. Other options for money down, veterans, we have a 0% down. If anyone wants to live outside the city, the USDA loans are 0% down. So there's a lot of programs that can help, but just kind of count on in your head, you're looking probably at a 3% for most of these down, and then now you kind of know what grants to go after. Highly recommend the homeowners courses. Veterans are 0% down. Yep.
Oh, my nephew's in.
Yep, and we can stack. We can actually do, so veterans are 0% down. So they roll the closing costs in the loan. Veterans can do this.
I'll tell my nephew that.
So, yeah, so this is, you can do the front door, first front door, you can add it to it, which is nice.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to credit. So hopefully, you feel a little better about the down payment. There's a lot out there, just
people don't know.
Find a bank that can do it. Not all banks do every loan. Every bank's different. There's loans in here I don't do. It's just you have to look different places to get your best.
But she specializes in looking for grants and stacking them, which is really beneficial. So every bank does it differently, but she's probably exceptional in that factor, that she works with a lot of grants to give you the most money and the most assistance that's available. And she's very educational too, so if you have questions, it helps to speak to someone who doesn't mind going the extra mile. Some people, I've heard from many of the lenders that it's a lot more paperwork, and they don't want to have to do that, and I'm kind of surprised that you are very particular about going that extra mile because it matters.
Because she wants to help.
Yeah, because truly, I mean, I've been there, buying my first house, same thing. I didn't have, in the old days, we needed 20% down. The hard is to save 20% down. Anything less than 20% down, they're going to charge you mortgage insurance. So again, that makes your payment a little higher to you 20% equity. So it's tough. I saved my 10% at a time. There was a program that let me in for 10% down. Nowadays, it's a lot less. So it's easier getting a home now than I think it was when I bought my first
So
home.
that's another thing that you should keep in mind is when you're speaking to someone in a lender and you're trying to figure out if they're trying to work with you, always get two. And if you find one that is really helping you understand it and is offering you certain incentives, that may be the person that you may want to go with. I mean, I usually send people to 2 or 3 people, but they always come right back to Nikki. Because a lot of them are not offering these government programs or assistance or grants. They just want to do a straight, easy peasy loan. But, you know, this is why, you know, it's nice to know who's who.
There is.
There's a certain line that, like, if you need too much assistance, are you really going to be able to pay?
Right.
And that's not always the case. A lot of times, like for me, for instance, right, that's why I'm here. I want to get a home. But there was a time I had a bad apartment on my name, but I had a slum landlord. But I lost in court. So on paper, I looked horrible.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But I was fortunate and God blessed it where the landlord in Wormleysburg, I will never forget him, Terry Lehrman, he looked at me and he said, if you're honest with me, I'll be honest with you. And my sister like gave me this whole pep talk before we went in. She's like, don't tell him nothing. Mommy said don't volunteer no information. And so I'm already like nervous and you know, and like you said, when you walk in a home, your face lights up. You know what I mean? So when I walked in, I was like, this place is gorgeous. And he honestly, I thank God for him because he is a good landlord. Like he redid the house before I moved in. And so him and his wife lived there and he gave, you know, and he explained it to me, so I'm gonna be honest with you. It's gonna cost about $1,000 a month to be like with your bills included. He said your rent and everything else. So I already knew at that time I was like, I'm working 2 jobs, got this. But I was like, he's gonna run my credit. So I was panicking. When he said that to me, it was like God says, say something. So I was like, when you look me up, my sister wanted to, like she was giving me the eye, like, what are you doing? I was like, when you look me up, you're gonna see a bad apartment. But I have pictures, I have proof, I had mold, I had, you know what I mean? I said, but I lost in court. And so he was like, okay. And he called me a week later and was like, you want the house, you call me. You know what I mean? Everybody, and that's the thing, people look at it as, oh, like, you look at somebody on paper and they don't look the best. They may not, but that's not always the case. And just because you get some grants to get your home, doesn't mean you're not going to pay your stuff on time. Doesn't mean that you're not, a lot of times I've lived places where these girls were perfect on paper, but they were hell in the house. Like there was drama, there was always something. So you can't just knock somebody because on paper they don't look like what you think.
Well, that's another reason why a good lender is helpful too, because if you're having issues with your credit and you're not really sure where to go, you know, getting that pre-approval and speaking to a lender that cares and is interested and is invested, they're going to tell you how to fix that. You know, they're going to actually give you step by step, so that you can get your credit where you need it to be, and that's, you know, that's another important factor in the process of getting pre-approved.
I was going to ask about the credit, because you said credit score, I'm like,
she's got to touch on that.
I promise.
So, but when you start saying about that, and I went, like I said, I went through the classes, and I got my certificate. And I think they give you like 2 years, within that 2 years.
I was going to say, it's a decent amount of time,
But when I was saying about my credit, but once I went through the classes, I guess the following month or 2 down the line, I started seeing credit cards coming in my mail, but I never applied for them. But I see it. You know, and I've been having this, what they call it, Montgomery Ward. And you know you got paid that each month. I had it for like 2 years. And I know that's on my credit. But I've been paying it on time, right?
That's good, so that counts towards you. So let's talk a little bit about credit. Again, I'm not a credit counselor, full disclosure up front. Most of these programs, now the grant programs, they're not asking for your credit at all, okay? The Dauphin County, they're not asking for your credit report, the front and first story. They're just giving you grants. They're relying on the lender to qualify you from a credit perspective. If they think you're credit worthy, here's the money. So you don't have to worry about you know, qualifying for the grants themselves, except the income-wise, right? Or the right zip code or whatever it needs to be. As far as credit, most of these programs we're talking about today is going to start at a 620. So 620 is going to be your FHA programs. 620, and then the Home Ready we'll talk about. So those are going to be a 660 for most of the programs I speak about today. Again, it's really hard to say until you come to me and we figure out what program works for you. That's kind of how it works. You apply. If you know that you're in the 5s, it's not the time to apply for the pre-approval, because you'll just get denied and it's another hit in your credit. You don't want to do that. You want to wait until basically you know you're ready. You can apply anytime. I can't discourage you from applying at all. So apply at any time, but just know anything under that 620, I don't have a program for that. So anyways, so
neither does any other lender.
It's
your credit score is important. It's like an appraisal. It's important.
So how do we improve our credit a tiny bit? First of all, and you talked about having a trade line. So what we call in the business is a trade line. You need to have 3 trade lines for mortgage. Okay, so basically you're looking at, it could be your cell phone from Verizon, it could be a cable bill, it could be Montgomery Ward's, it could be JCPenney's, it could be a car loan, student loans. Okay, we look at all those. We're looking for 3. If you have less than 3, there are things you can do. You can get a secure credit card. You can, don't go out and like use a ton of credit to get credit. You want to pay that off. Just do a small amount, right? So again,
show the payment history.
Right, they're looking at the payment history. So every loan you're paying on time, we call it a 1 in the business, you get a 1, you get a positive towards it. Say you have a balance, that's counting against you technically, right? Even though you're paying on time, you're using too much of your credit. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. Again, I'm not a counselor on it, but just know the more you're using of that balance, you want to try to get under 50%. So if it's $499, for example, that's helping your credit. Certain loans are better than other loans. So an installment loan like a car, that's better than a revolving debt. And all of these things are on Equifax.com. You can go out to one of the credit agencies, take a look. But we're looking for 3 trade lines. We're looking for you to pay it on time. The one thing I can't fix for you, basically if you were late on any mortgage in the last, so if you already own a house in the last 12 months, if you were late on that, or a late rent in the last 12 months. So that's something before you even do the pre-approval, make sure you're paying your rent. You need that 12-month, they're going to look back at it. So if you're a first-time home buyer, they're looking at your rental history. You have to have no lates in the last 12 months. Other things about credit. What's that?
And I was just saying that my sister, wait a bit.
The other thing that we kind of look at for credit, and this is a trap we all fall into, right? You have a friend, they're like really down on their luck, they don't have their job, but they need a car, they can't get to a job because they don't have a car. So you're going to go ahead and put your name down for their car payment.
No.
So the problem with that, and again, it counts against you for your mortgage. So say that car payment's $300 a month, and your debt to income, so the federal has guidelines, so yeah, maybe you can only take 50% of your income a month for debt, and you're paying on that car, so that's $300 of your debt to income. You're like, but I'm not paying that car. Well, that's unfortunate because your name is on there. Same with co-signing a house, co-signing student loans.
Co-signing anything?
Right.
I work for FIA, so
there you go.
I always urge people never. I know you love your kids. I love my kids too.
Yep.
Do not do a Parent Plus loan. That is like the word. You're crucifying yourself. There's no programs for them. Like they don't because it's not a loan you took out for yourself.
Yep.
You took it out for your child, which is great.
We
but
need to bring her with us.
It hurts. It hurts.
Yeah. It's true. It's counting
us
us
so
on
bad. Like, people call in and they want help, and there's only like 2. Not programs, but like 2 like repayment schedules that work for them. And they're like, you mean to tell me I don't qualify? I'm like, I'm so sorry. Because but what I do tell them is I don't recommend consolidation, but when it comes to plus loans, if you have one, if you consolidate it twice, it removes that plus status off of it. So I do tell them that. I was like, it's up to you, talk to your bank and talk, you know what I mean? Make sure you know all your, the negatives and the positives to consolidating. I was like, but if you're trying to remove that plus status, that's how you do it.
Yeah, and certain kids, just to get around it too, kids basically can refinance with 12 on-time payments. They can get it in their own name. I mean, there's income-driven repayments. So if the payment's too high to get their debt to income, they can they speak your language, right? And
but I know that a lot of lenders, well, I can't speak for everybody, but I know that people have literally called in and said, I'm on $0 income-based repayment. My lender doesn't want to see that I'm on a $0 payment. I need to change. So I've told people that when they call in, I don't, like you said, I'm not a person, but I do know that I'm taking these calls and I'm like, you don't want to be on $0 because their lender's not going to want to see that you're making
If it's $10 a month, we could do that.
I was like, well, let's see about another plan for you because what you don't want is to take this to your lender. They'd be like,
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
So things we can exclude on credit, they just passed this, I think Freddie and Fannie just passed. Medical debt, we're not going to make you pay that before. There's things, if you work with a credit counselor, things you shouldn't pay off that are, it's like, well, it makes more sense to pay this off instead of that. They'll advise you on that, but something like medical debt, we don't make you pay that off before you close. Some outstanding judgments we do, others we don't. You really have to look at the situation. It's a very gray area what needs to be paid off if you have stuff outstanding or hanging over your head, so to speak. So you just, individual questions.
And if you have something like that far on your credit, how long do they keep it on your credit?
It depends what it is. It can fall off in 5 years, 2 years, 7 years, it depends what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, after 7 years, most things like bankruptcies, all of that, there's a look back, yeah.
I think I got a medical.
Yep, so medical, for example, again, it could be a 7 years that it's on there, but the bank would make you pay it, for example, for certain loans that you apply for. So there's different categories of loans, of conventional and government loans. Sometimes the government says you have to do something and conventional doesn't, yes.
This is the whole little hospital thing, like for my medical assistance.
Right.
I believe it's medical assistants need to pay that. But why is it on my record?
Yes, they started reporting, actually, there's a whole movement to remove medical from credit reports. There's a whole movement out there, I don't know if it's a bill, but it's a huge impact to people. So that's actually on the table somewhere for legislature, but it hasn't passed yet. But I don't want to say, guessing it might come in the future, Freddie and Fannie already removed that as an obligation to pay back. Because if something's outstanding, like you have a Comcast bill or something, and it's $800 and it's like in dispute or whatever, we do make you resolve that before you get your mortgage. So there's certain things in dispute you have to pay off. Medical is no longer one of those.
And another thing, say like you said about the landlord when you owe a place.
Yep.
But it's still on your record. It's
Yep.
been years.
Yep.
Gotta lower your credit too, right?
They all impact your credit for a certain amount of time.
Oh, I ain't talking about me, so I'm just thinking of somebody else.
Oh, yep. So it'll impact whoever's credit for a certain amount of time until it falls off. So that's the other thing with pre-approvals as well. I've had people come to me, and they worked in a bank, one of them, they're like, I'm pre-approved at 10 different places. I'm like, actually doesn't make you a stronger candidate, and it is.
They was mad. I know they was mad.
I'm just like, the more pre-approvals is not better. So if you are shopping for a lender, shop, decide who it is, and then do your pre-approval, because it is a hit in your credit that stays there for 120 days.
Oh, you're saying a pre-approval for running your credit.
Actually running your credit. I can talk to you as much as you want. I mean, we can talk hypotheticals till I pull your credit. I can't answer your questions like, does this have to be paid or that? I can't answer that till I see your actual credit report. That's an actual hit on your credit. So as far as timing, which you asked about in the beginning, take the classes whenever you want. The pre-approval is good for 120 days. That's what the credit pool is good for. We'll say 60 or 90 on the letter, but you want to make sure you're like very serious about looking. And it might take, Heidi more than, 4 months to find you a house if you're real specific with, wanting a specific area. But that's okay, we can reissue that pre-approval. In a lot of cases, I'll just extend it, as long as there's no changes to your credit. But yeah, so they're good for roughly 120 days for a credit pool.
Wow.
Yeah.
We pull our own credit? Like.
You can't, so you can get.
If we have our own.
So there is a website called Free Annual Credit Report, yep. You can get it every year.
Not all
check
three
if
of
there's
them.
any. You can't ever see the score on that, right? You can only pull it through a bank.
Right.
Yep, and it's not a soft pull no matter what a lender will tell you. It's not a soft pull, it's a real pull. Okay? When people that can do soft pulls or your own bank with your own accounts.
Or they'll tell you that at the store, oh, it won't hurt your credit, real.
Yeah,
I used to work at Macy's.
Yeah,
Don't
right.
blame me. It's a real pull.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to see if I'm good to get credit.
Exactly, yep. So just protect your credit, it's important.
Right.
And all of this also affects as well your rates and everything. So, there's certain risk with a credit score or whatever. Again, that's going to affect the rate you get on your mortgage as well. So just be aware of it. All of it's together. So if I had a guess today out of assets, maybe someone came into this training and they said, wait, I don't have enough money to do this. You probably do. I mean, you have to have a little bit of savings, but there's so many programs out there. Yeah. So assets probably won't be your hurdle to get over. It's going to be the credit. Literally, if I have people with 700 credit scores, there's programs out there that will literally say 0% down, and you have to do your 1%. You can get a gift for that 1%. So you talk about your mom's money or, instead of mattress money, it's in an account. They can gift you this, but you have to have a certain credit score not to bring your own money. Okay? FHA, you have to bring 3.5% of your own funds. So if you're doing FHA for the $100,000 loan, you have to bring $3,500 to the table. No, you can't have a gift, like you have to. But there's other programs, if your credit's over 700, you don't have to bring anything. You can get that as a gift or seller assist or whatever. So just know, money is probably not the hurdle, it's gonna be the credit. In most cases, just protect your credit, get your trade lines, keep your job history, pay your rent on time, and you got this. So that's.
All right, well, I think we just want to answer questions if you guys have any questions. One thing I just want to ask you guys, because you're so smart, so I'm going to ask you. What does FHA stand for?
Get that money.
No, everybody thinks it's first-time home buyer.
No.
It is not. It's Federal Housing Administration.
And that's the
You
point.
do not have to be a first-time home buyer to use FHA if you needed it. So that's just
Perfect. And actually, you asked in the beginning, first-time home buyer, if you owned a home in the past, you get all these programs again if it's been 3 years since you owned your first home. Okay, so just to clarify that as well. Yep.
All right, so any questions about anything we've talked about, because it's been a lot.
I know,
I
it's a
feel
lot
like
of
we've
information.
overwhelmed you guys, I'm sorry.
And Heidi, you were the buyer, what is your title? You're the,
I'm one of the buyer agents.
She's a
Buyer
buyer
agent,
specialist.
yes,
Yep,
buyer
she
specialist.
knows how to.
So I primarily work with all buyers.
Say if, cause I know my mom been looking at houses and stuff, like do you have to, do you have to find a house first to get
Well, the first thing you
or-
want to do is get a pre-approval because sellers don't want random people just coming to their house. A lot of people say, oh, I really love this house, can I go see it? But they don't want to go through the pre-approval because they're not really serious about the process. But when the homeowner has to leave their house and clean it up and make it look nice, it's a major inconvenience
That's a
to
lot.
them.
Yeah.
So one of the main things that they ask you is, you must bring someone who's pre-qualified. Now, it doesn't mean you're obligated, it just means you're qualified. At the end of the day, it's
Just
really
means you're
up
not
to you.
looking at a house you can't afford, because you
Right.
want to just look.
And that's another thing, is that you may ask to look at houses that are way out of your price range. So getting
And that
that
is a waste of
pre-approval
people's
tells us
time.
what you qualify for. It tells the seller that you're a serious buyer. And, you know, that's primarily the only thing you need is the pre-approval. And like I said, you don't have to buy anything, you can take your time and keep looking. But it's a necessary thing that everybody needs to know to help you see the houses that are fitting for you financially.
Right.
Okay, back to the credit. You have two people going in to buy the house. As far as the credit, how does that work?
So you each have 3 credit scores. So we take a tri-merge score is the middle score for both to keep it fair, but it's the lower of the 2 middle. So if someone's going in with you, make sure they have good credit, because the lower of the 2 is what's going to count. You know, as the score.
Okay.
So
That's a great question.
That's a great question. Yep. Yep, and their debts count against you, but the income helps. So if you want someone to help with the income and, you know, all of that, because if you don't want them on your application, they can give you a gift for something. So if they want to help you get a house, it's like, here's a check for $1,000, it's a gift. They can help you get into the house and not be on the application. That's an option. They can also go on the deed and not be on the application, which gets a little tricky.
Oh, okay.
I thought the deed, wait.
So
you said they can go on the
piece of
deed, but they
paper,
don't
right,
count
You
towards.
can be on a deed and not be on the mortgage.
Yep.
Oh,
Which means they're not responsible
okay.
for the
So
payment,
it's
but they
question,
do
yeah.
own part of the house.
Correct.
Like, people do
Hear that?
spouses.
Right.
Sometimes do that.
So that means, so you're
Married
saying,
child.
so then that way it won't count against you when you're trying to get a.
Right.
Gotcha.
So if the spouse, for example, has bad credit, you have the good
Right.
credit, you're like, well, it's my spouse, he's gonna go on the
Yeah.
deed or whatever.
But I don't want him
I
as
don't
part of
want
my
him to
credit.
Right. Well, no, I thought they had to go together. So that's
Yeah.
good that it
That's
can
what I
be
was gonna
separate.
ask.
Yep.
About the same
Don't
thing.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a good question, yeah.
I'm just saying that if I get the house, so I put my daughter on the deed, that's how I
That's
do
right.
it,
Yeah.
but she's still gonna pay part of the rent. I mean, the
Well,
mortgage.
that's up to you.
Yeah, that's what that's between the two of
Still
y'all.
gonna pay part of
But
the
you know what,
mortgage.
the mortgage company
what you're
doesn't
talking
wanna hear any of
She said, Mom, what about my credit? I said, I don't know about your
I don't know
credit.
about my credit because when I lived on Market Street in the apartment that I was living in, it was the high rises. It was cool until I started seeing people throwing poo diapers out the window and they peeing in the hallway and I'm big, but I got to go. So I don't know if I left. I
She left a
moved
month before her
my lease was up. So
Sometimes they report, sometimes they don't. You wanna
Depends
wait
on
a-
it, depends, we just, you
You
never
don't
know
know.
who's gonna report you.
And then the management that had her, that building at the
I don't know,
time,
but I
ain't
had
here
to go.
no more. It's another management.
Yeah.
So that's still roll over her credit.
We don't.
I
need
think
to
they're a
report it.
different. I think it's a different menu. That
It depends on the funds, what they
Unfortunately,
put.
Mom, what
we're
what
trying
day
to
was
do
that?
this in a general sense, we
Yeah.
can't give specifics without, running social security numbers and all
Yeah,
kinds
that's
of
all.
different stuff.
Mhm.
One of the things that's in the packet, and this has nothing to do really with home ownership, there's a packet from Hack. I went to Hack. But what this is, there's some things in here where you can get some real good programs. I mean, if you have children that want to go to Hack, I was talking to Dr. Steve, who's the president of Hack, and he told me that there's they can do a complete federal financial aid application and get up to $5,000 a year. And they will help you with that, or if you have a student in high school, the high school guidance counselor will help your student with that. It's really easy, he said, really easy to get that $5,000 if people just don't apply or even know about it.
Well, I'm about to have
It's in your packet.
Oh, it's one of the papers?
Yeah, it's in here, it's in this packet.
In the back of
from
her.
Hack.
You're in it.
Back. Oh, you're in it.
Yeah, you're in it.
Mom.
Well, no, I don't, this I guess was, okay, I'm sorry, it's a federal financial aid application. And that federal financial aid application, like I said, you can go through Hack and they'll help you. You can go through your guidance counselors at the high school, your kids can go through their guidance counselor. But he said Hack also has a scholarship, and he's like, he cannot believe people don't apply for this scholarship.
I don't know.
And it's $1,000 a semester. That's a lot of money. There's 2 semesters
There's
in a
actually
year.
2 grants that they offer you, and it is based on your income, but
It
they
is
do,
based on your, yeah. So
every semester you're entitled to those
and
funds.
he said it's so easy to get. And then the other thing is the Rotary Club. So if your kids go to Harrisburg City School or Steelton School or Bishop McDevitt, those 3 schools for Harrisburg Rotary, they give you $1,000. And he said this year not one person applied. Like, who doesn't ask for $1,000?
I didn't know that about Hack.
It's almost like free money. It's free money. So if you and Hack has a lot of, like I said, I went to Hack.
They do. They have.
I love
They have a lot of
Hack.
funding.
So anyway, I just wanted to say, and there's real estate classes at Hack. If any of you guys are in real estate, you can take a real estate class at Hack. But anyway, do any of you guys have any other general questions?
You're good. You got a group. It's great.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah,
You wanna be a realtor?
No, because I don't know, because my attitude, I have to count to 3 and I have to 0 to 100 real quick.
Well, real estate, you have to have a good poker face.
Yeah.
I don't have a good poker face.
But Jay, when you do that, if you notice Toya, her eyebrows goes into a point.
I'm like, I'm not mean, I'm just
Don't let it take
tired.
When she goes outside and get the chocolate, just watch her eyebrows, they go straight into a point. I'm like, oh, when they go into an art, that's uh-oh. That's cool.
Latoya has a question.
So I was, okay, so when I lived that beautiful home in Williamsburg, but I lived around Williamsburg, and there's a lot of houses that were like dilapidated and stuff like that. In this, like you said, the state of Pennsylvania has certain rules, right? So that was one of my questions. Like, so when you're going through the process, right, and you're doing is there just in general, I guess every state has the rules of what has to be updated in the house. Like, how does that work? Like, if
Has to
they're
be habitable. Yeah, that's gonna be on the lender side.
Yeah, go ahead. I was gonna say you
Yeah,
take
totally.
that because
So the realtor Heidi might call me up and say, hey, I'm looking at this house, take a look at the pictures. You know, there's certain things like the HVAC. For FHA, for example, I believe the roof has to have 3 years left on it when they inspect it. Like
minimum of 3 years
yeah,
of life.
minimum, right? HVAC system, they're gonna look at any holes in the wall, mold, any of those. Any of those government programs aren't gonna, so we can't do the grants, we can't do the FHA because they won't approve that house unless the seller fixes it. But part of the reason they might have a lower price
Is because of the condition.
The condition itself.
like it was a fixer-upper type.
Right, and they're just not meant for FHA, and you can understand too, it's a first-time home buyers, like, you have your hands full.
Already just trying to make sure everything else is intact.
They're, right, so sometimes it's.
So you said location. If the house is in the perfect location, but it's somewhat of a wreck, if you're willing to work through the programs, because there's programs where you can actually borrow money for repairs to fix up your house. So that's all part of the process. You just have to be willing to do that.
Right.
But you're right, you can change your house, but you can't change your location.
Right.
I always tell people, with these interest rates that are somewhat higher now, guys, they're like what? 6.5?
Yeah.
Okay, that is, everybody says, oh my God, that's so high. Well, you guys are all just remembering when it was 2 and 3. That is not that high. Okay, I can tell you, I've had mortgages at 9, 13, 16, okay? I remember those days. This 6.5 rate that is out there right now is below the average. The average is what, 8?
7.75 over
Yeah,
30 years.
over the last 30 years.
Yep.
So it's not that high. But my point that I want to make is you got to find the right house. So you need to find a buyer's agent that's going to help you find the right house. You marry the house. You're only dating the rate. You can change your rate.
You can
refinance. The rate in a year or 2 is going to go
That's
down.
right.
You
can
just
always
refinance. You're dating.
Okay.
Get rid of the rate. Get another one.
That's what my friend did with her. She has a beautiful home in New Cumberland. I personally, it's not my forte because it's like, to me, it's in the middle of the woods. I don't. Wilderness makes me. She don't want to. Well, not. Don't get me wrong. She like her. Well, she has an uncle who has he built it for her. So it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. But the one day she showed me the video where she came home in a black mamba that she had to cut off his head. I said, and that is why I can't live here.